Hello everybody, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jackie and I create mosaics using sea glass. And today I'm going to talk to you about why I love brown sea glass so much. So if you saw my last video, you would have seen me going on a sea glass hunt and getting rather excited because it was a brown day and I ended up finding quite a bit of brown sea glass, which is always a good day because I absolutely love brown sea glass. But brown sea glass gets a really bum rap. A lot of people think of it as the least interesting. It's fairly common, and when you find it on the beach, it doesn't necessarily jump out at you and shine like a green piece would, or a white piece even, or especially some blues and aquas. Like some of those pieces just pop right out at you when you're sea glass hunting, whereas brown might look a little bit boring. But believe me, when I started making sea glass mosaics, I realized how incredibly special brown is, and I could never imagine any of my mosaics without brown. I've never made one without brown. I always include some in my mosaics, and I want to challenge you. Today I'm going to show you some of my mosaics and look at them and try to picture them without brown. And I think you'll agree, the designs I think would really fall flat without the brown. So when I started making sea glass mosaics, I used quite a bit of brown in some of the flowing lines, and I really felt like the brown really grounded the piece and really made the other colors show up very nicely. But then I would hang them in the window, and what would happen is the white and the green would look nice, and a lot of those blue pieces, you're going to see them, but when the light shines through the brown, oh, let me tell you, it's so beautiful, and it shows a lot nicer than a lot of the other sea glass does. So I thought, I'm definitely going to put more and more brown into my sea glass pieces. So then when I got doing things like silhouettes, of course the brown is just the color that you need because it really makes your silhouette stand out. So you can see that picture this without brown, it's not going to look that nice. So then when I make some of my landscape designs, of course the brown offers a really good base for the bottom of a design, and it also provides a really good silhouette for stems. As you can see in this fall grass piece that I made, I used a lot of brown in the stems for that one. And then if you look at the one behind me here, I have a tree. The brown really does a good job of creating a lot of texture in the tree and creating some good branches. And even this piece over here, this abstract design, it would be totally lost and just floating in the air without any good brown to ground it. So there's a lot of reasons why I use brown. So when I go to the beach and I get all of this brown sea glass, I get quite excited about it because you get more and more every time you go, and eventually I've got tons and tons of brown sea glass. So then I tend to sort my brown into different trays depending on what I'm looking for. So I might have some different shaped pieces. I've always got a little tray of tiny little browns for little spots when I need them. And I've got like this, just a big tray like this, and then I can sort through it to see what I have. I've got everything from dark, big chunky brown pieces to really light, more amber colored pieces. And it's just really interesting to me, all the different shades, all the different shapes. There's so much to work with when it comes to brown. So you might be thinking that, oh, Jackie, brown, it's just too boring. It's really common, and the majority of it comes from beer bottles, which is fine, you know, but I do agree with you. The majority of it probably comes from beer bottles. I find a lot of these bottle tops, and they are definitely the tops from beer bottles. And I find them kind of interesting, and I've used them in some interesting ways in my mosaics. But still, they're from beer. And then you even get things like this where there's markings on it that says Labatt Dry, which is a local beer, and you know that's from a beer bottle. And I'd say the majority of my brown collection comes from beer. But then every once in a while I'll find something interesting, like this handle. I'm not really sure what that's from. It might be from the top of a beer growler, but it might be from the top of a jug that held Lysol or Javex or something different like that. And I found a few pieces like this that actually have Javex written on them, and this would be the bottle bottom. So you know that there are things other than beer that we get our brown sea glass from. But I would say the majority of it comes from beer. So here's to all those people that throw their beer bottles away. I love the fact that we get so much brown sea glass from it. So what to do with all that brown? In this piece, you can see I used it in the cape and in the beach and in the far off cape. And I even used brown in the door and in the roof of the cottage. And you can see that this piece is really based on brown. And then in this landscape piece, you can see the brown in the foreground as well as in the far off cape. And it really is effective. And then in this piece, the focal point, the lighthouse, is white, but this would be really lost without brown. And then I use brown a lot in silhouettes, like with this flying heron. It's very effective. And again with the fish, these fish are great in brown. And then here's a bird in a tree. Using brown in trees is wonderful to create texture and knots in the tree. And in this tree, it's just amazing to have all those thick, chunky brown pieces at the bottom. It really creates a lot of texture in the tree. And then brown can be really good for creating buildings, like this little building with the roof and the ground, everything. The brown is wonderful. And when I wanted to create the Confederation Bridge, I found all these tiny little brown pieces that fit together very delicately to create the structure of the bridge. It's kind of similar in this rocking chair. The pieces are so tiny, but when you put them together the right way, they really create a cool looking rocking chair. But one of my favorite uses of brown has to be in the abstract pieces. I just love this piece with using the big chunky browns in the middle and the tiny little ones around the edge. It just creates so much texture and dimension in the design. So thanks very much for joining me today. I hope this has given you a new appreciation for brown sea glass, and I hope that you will go on to collect lots of brown and use it in your sea glass mosaic art. So then, till next time, happy sea glass hunting.